This is Jim Williams with the Hurricane City Tropical Update for July 31st around 4:30 p.m. Here is the floater loop of Invest 93L located well east of the Windward Islands, and the system remains very disorganized. In fact, the National Hurricane Center dispatched a Hurricane Hunter aircraft out there this afternoon, and they could not find enough of a low-level circulation to classify this as a tropical depression or tropical storm. However, they did find some gale force winds out there. But if you notice on this image, the center of circulation is exposed to the north of the convection. You can see the circulation right in here, and nothing around it in the northern side of this, and that is because of dry air intrusion, and this has been a problem for this system developing all along. And if you notice on this image here, the dry air, Saharan dry air, are the orange and yellow areas on the screen. Right where my mouse pointer is where the center of circulation for 93L is, and notice the dry air being wrapped into the system. So it's not looking good for Invest 93L becoming Tropical Storm Bertha. However, that is possible as it passes through the northern Leeward Islands over the weekend, that this could become a tropical storm. But out in front of it, it's not very favorable unless this system makes a more northerly track, which would get it in more favorable environment for development. Let's take a look at the National Weather Service forecast position. This is going out 72 hours, and you can see the system is very near or over the island of Hispaniola, which is a tropical storm killer, and the mountains there are some odd 10 to 12,000 foot mountains over that landmass. So if this passes over it, it's not going to bode well for a low-level circulation to survive. However, weaker systems do pass over the island a little bit better than stronger systems. Stronger systems tend to get torn apart a little bit more with a well-developed center of circulation. This is a raggedy system, so the islands might not have as strong of a influence on it as would if this was a hurricane. But nevertheless, the system is forecast to pass over and near Puerto Rico as possibly a weak tropical storm, and then over Hispaniola, very near the Bahamas. And then the forecast is for this to start to recurve in advance of a trough over the southeastern United States. Now here's the thing about the models. The intensity is a little bit problematic, but the best performing intensity models have been the Schiffer model and the aviation ensemble models, which respectively around 2 to 3 knots off over the entire 5-day pattern so far with Invest 93L. And they're indicating that this is going to remain a very weak system, maybe a weak tropical storm in 72 hours, and then basically either dissipating or maintaining its status depending on the interaction with land. But it's not looking good for the future of Invest 93L of really amounting to much of anything unless it takes a more northerly track. Now, speaking of track, the best performer on track has been the aviation ensemble model number 17. And here's the track taking this over Hispaniola into the Bahamas and then making a sharp turn to the north in response to the trough. But again, conditions will not be favorable in this area, and it will be very difficult for this system to survive if it gets anywhere near Florida. So I wouldn't expect any tropical storm conditions, but again, if this turns to the north, maybe towards Bermuda, this could be a more significant system, which several models are indicating. Now here are the best performers on the front page of Hurricane City on the tracking map, and the BAM shallow model rather is taking it right into South Florida as a very weak system, which would be expected because it's a shallow model, meaning it's better performer for weaker systems. And if this remains very weak, tropical depression or an open wave type situation, it could very well find its way into South Florida, but it would not be in a favorable environment, so this wouldn't generate into anything significant. And here are the sea surface temperatures, and again, these maps can all be found on the front page of Hurricane City by clicking the yellow navigation links right below the map, and you can get this zoomed in sea surface temperature map. And this is showing the system was coming out at temperatures right around 80, 81 degrees. Now they're getting into a little bit warmer sea surface temperatures in the northern Antilles, 82, 83 degrees. You get into the Bahamas, you're talking 84 degree temperatures near the Bahamas. So this will be in much warmer waters up near the Bahamas, which if it does take this northerly track, as the LBAR is indicating here, and the European model also indicates that this is going to happen, that this might actually generate into something possibly a strong tropical storm or even possibly a hurricane if it gets running parallel to the wind shear and in between Bermuda and the United States where warmer sea surface temperatures are. This could develop into something but not if it takes the southern route towards Florida. Here's the shear forecast for 48 hours. And again, you can see a lot of shear in the Caribbean, so if it takes a more southerly route over Hispaniola or this area, it's going to be shredded by upper level wind shear. However, if it passes east of the Bahamas and up towards Bermuda, then it would be in a more favorable environment for strengthening. And here's the wind shear, the low-level steering flow rather, and again it shows the system moving generally west-northwest, as all the directional arrows would indicate, and then when it gets near the Bahamas it starts making that northerly turn. And finally, here's the wind shear tendency, indicating increasing wind shear in the Caribbean Sea. So again, the only survival this thing might have would be to travel north of the islands and then travel north towards Bermuda possibly to have a chance to strengthen. But right now it looks like the system is weak. It may remain weak. This thing may never turn into a tropical storm, but we're going to continue to track it at Hurricane City. The current feature is the island of Dominica. That was where the last system, Tropical Depression number 2, passed through there, but it never really amounted to anything. And you know, ironically, back in 2011, we had Storm Chaser Jim Leonard here in the studio along with Derek Sibley, and we were talking about Tropical Storm Emily at that time, and it was right around the same time of year, August 1st. We were talking about Tropical Storm Emily and what could happen to it. And of course, nothing ever came of it. It passed over the Greater Antilles and dissipated, so probably the same thing will happen with this system. But that clip can be found on the front page of Hurricane City, that video when we were covering Tropical Storm Emily. It was me, Bill Phillips, Jim Leonard, and Derek Sibley all talking about the future that never amounted to anything. So this may end up being the same type of scenario. Anyway, that's it for now. If anything changes dramatically with this system, I'll be back with another update, maybe sometime over the weekend. People in the northern Leeward Islands and Puerto Rico should expect some strong gusty winds, tropical storm type conditions, but the way it looks right now, this is not going to be a significant system passing through the northern Leeward Islands. But folks maybe up near Bermuda might need to keep an eye on this over the next several days to see if this makes the turn and gets in a more favorable environment. That's it for now. Thank you for visiting Hurricane City.